Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Simone van der Graaf. The last weeks I've been responsible of building a data analysis for the upcoming influenza season of 2018 in the United States. From your experience and as seen in the data that was available to me, we know that influenza has been a risky disease, resulting in an increase in deaths since 2009. The goal of this project was to analyze different data sets on influenza, to discover which age groups and which states are most vulnerable, and to translate this to a proposal on where the medical staffing agency should send their additional staff to minimize the risk of influenza in the future. To determine the most vulnerable age groups, I've analyzed both data on influenza deaths since 2009 and data on the US population for the same time period. The bar chart shows that the age groups of 65 years and older are clearly the most vulnerable, both in the number of deaths, but as well as the mortality rate. With over 400,000 influenza deaths in 9 years, this group takes 62.5% of the total number of influenza deaths. The relationship between the total deaths and the total deaths of people of 65 years and older is very strong, as the line in this graph shows. The data I worked with for this project also included geographical information, which made it possible for me to analyze per region and per state. Next to the number of deaths, the chart also shows that the highest population numbers and the most influenza deaths are in the west of the United States. To get a more clear picture on where the vulnerable groups are mostly located in the United States, I decided to put the spread per region, but also per state, next to each other, as you can see here on this slide. In the map of the regions, you can see that the west of the United States exists mostly outstates with smaller population and less influenza deaths. You can see it because the smaller circles show that there are less deaths in the region. California, however, is clearly a vulnerable state with most influenza deaths. On the other side, you can see the map that shows all the states. Here we can see that the states that are most vulnerable, well, again you can see that it's California, but if we zoom in, we see that after California, both New York, Pennsylvania, and Texas are the most vulnerable states of influenza deaths after California. This is again over the period of time between 2009 and 2017. Another question that we wanted to have the answer on is if influenza is occurring more in a specific season, and if the medical staffing agency should send staff particularly to this high season or throughout the whole year. This map shows the influenza deaths of the most vulnerable age groups, and here you can either choose or hover over a month to see the difference. If I click on the highlight area, you see the months. So January shows quite strong darker colors of the states that are more vulnerable. You can see it changing when I go over it, showing that in the months outside of winter, the colors are lighter, meaning that there are less influenza deaths. Here again, November shows already darker, and December shows quite the darkest colors. So we can tell based on this graph that there is actually influenza season, a high influenza season, which occurs in the winter months. Now that we know the most vulnerable age groups, most vulnerable states, and the highest influenza season, I can recommend that the medical staffing agency distributes their additional staff over the 10 states mentioned on this slide. Those are the states suffering most from influenza. So it's again California, New York, Texas, and Pennsylvania. But there are 6 more that are seen as the higher or the more vulnerable states of influenza. The other states are a low priority. The column chart shows the vulnerability per month and per year. The focus should be on the winter months, but it's clear that the other seasons also show high numbers of influenza deaths. Therefore, I recommend to still have a capacity of 75% of the additional staff available the rest of the year. Thank you for your time. You can use this storyboard at any time available to really look at the details it's given. For any questions, you can contact me via my contact details given in an email about the presentation.